All right, does everyone have the handout? Everyone got food? Yeah? Okay, good. Let's get started. So, for those of you I have not met, my name is Megan Hayes, and I am the Lexis Research Attorney, and I am here to be of service to you, but more importantly, to go through your appellate brief problem. I am hoping to kind of nicely dovetail off of what Professor Rocklin did yesterday, so that you aren't getting a repeat of what you got on Lexis, but also that we really focus on Shepard's. So Shepard's is going to be very helpful for this particular problem. I'm going to apologize to you now that I am going to add a step to this. I'm actually going to Shepardize the statute as well, and I just was going to stick to the case, but Shepardizing a statute is a little bit different than Shepardizing the case. So we're going to do both. Just because there's a couple of things I want to point out to you that will be very helpful if you know how to do that process. If something doesn't make sense, please feel free to stop me, ask questions. I am more than happy to answer them for you. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, yes. I believe we are recording. Yes. Right? We're recording. Should I? Yeah, we're good. Okay. So let's talk about your appellate brief. This is all we're going to focus on today. Hopefully you have a little in your head so that you remember what terms and things we should get started with. I'm not going to go through in depth the research process, but let's start out with that first step. If I were going to create a good search, I'm going to go ahead and log into Lexis Advance. What terms should I begin my research with? Title IX, yes. Anything else?
Safe harbor.
Safe harbor, okay. What else? Female athletes, okay. Anything else? Yes, substantial proportional. Okay, so to create a search, I'm going to maybe choose 3 terms or phrases, and this is important. So I know that most of what you did last semester was based in Westlaw. I'm going to try and make sure that you know the key differences between Lexis and Westlaw, and this is one of the first differences is creating a search. So if you're applying Westlaw standards and how you create a search on Lexis, you are going to be very frustrated and you're not going to be as efficient, all right? So let's put in Title IX and, substantially proportionate. Is that right? And what else? You want to do female athletes? Or what do you think is going to be the most helpful? Discrimination? What's your vote? Say again. University? So here's a tip about getting a good initial start. I don't want to get too specific in my facts. So university is really good. Female athletes is good, but those are really good specific terms. And maybe to begin with, I want to take a step back, right? I want to think broadly about my term. What am I really trying to understand initially? I want to understand Title IX, right? And I want to understand how it relates to what? Athletics. Say it again, sorry. Extracurricular, yeah, those are all really good terms, but I want to be as broad initially as I can. So we're going to start with athletic, if I can spell that correctly. Okay, before I hit search, how is my search going to run? And if you've been to a Lexis class, this should be a refresher for you, particularly if you just sat in the last hour. How is my search going to run? Meaning, how are my terms going to appear and in what order? Yes?
I didn't sit in your last class. So
Great.
here, but it would first take everything that has Title IX, and then it's looking for everything that has substantially proportionate within Title IX, and then
Yep. All right, specifically, is substantially proportionate in Title IX, are they going to be arrayed as a phrase, or are they going to be individual on their own? Okay, so this is one of the major differences between Lexis and Westlaw. All right, on Westlaw, if I wanted them as a phrase, what would I need to do? Put quotes. On Lexis, I do not put quotes, and there's a big difference between putting quotes on Lexis and not putting quotes on Lexis. All right, so I don't need quotes because my and automatically puts words or phrases exactly as they are. Here's where the difference is, though. If I were to put quotes here, I wouldn't get my plural, past tense, and future tense of these particular words. So if there were something like substantially proportionate or proportion, okay, this is not a great example, but you get the gist, right? So I don't want to put quotes because remember, I'm trying to cast a broad net as possible, and I already get these two words as a phrase because I have my connector in there as and, all right? So any words you put all together, if you don't have them separated by any sort of connector, we're going to read it exactly as it is. So what you put on Lexis is what you get. You are the manipulator of the search. We are not adding anything in. Westlaw is adding in an or here. We are not. Okay, that's one of the major differences, that if you are adding in those quotes, you don't need them. If you put, sometimes I'll see, particularly one else, if they've only used Westlaw, they'll put terms and quotes, and then terms and quotes, and then terms and quotes, and they're not putting in those connectors. That's a very inefficient way of researching on Lexis, all right? Make sure you use the and, take out quotes, be broad to begin with. Any questions about this? Because this is one of the very first important steps of getting started on Lexis. Yes?
Is it going to cause problems if we do put quotes in?
No, but the only thing the difference is that you don't get those, the ed, the s, the ing, so you don't get those additional terms of the words, and sometimes, particularly when you're first getting started, you want those additional phrases. Yes? Great question. Can you put an exclamation mark and will that cover it? Yes, it will, but it's not if you put it in quotes. So just forget that you learned quotes on Lexis. Don't use quotes on Lexis unless you really, 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 really want it exactly as it is. It's really going to throw things off. So if you put this, an exclamation mark, and then you put it in quotes, it's going to look for exactly that phrase, and that's not a word. So, I saw another hand. Okay, good. Let's talk about what that does, though. So, is there a word or words that I could put that exclamation mark? So, the exclamation mark is the same on both systems. It works as the same. Yes? Yes, absolutely. So, maybe take it back to here. Yep. Is there another place I could do that? Notice where my cursor is. Oh. My auto-corrected that. Oh, and I don't want the C. No. Thank you for catching that. I wasn't paying attention. Oh, and it did it there too. This has never done that before. Huh. So maybe athletics, so I have athlete as well, right? So, and here's, I gave the example in this last class too. So you guys are my, 6th or 7th appellate brief this semester so far. And this is a really important thing. So when you use an exclamation mark, it's a better way to start a search, because if, for instance, there was another class at Lewis and Clark that had religious discrimination was part of their prompt, right? But they didn't know that the statute actually was titled religion. It was not titled religious. So I needed to make sure that I took it back to the religious here. Weird, this is doing that. It didn't do it last class. And put it there. So that makes sure that I capture all forms of that word. So not only would I get the S, ing, ed, but I get alternate forms of that word. It is a better way to research if you add in the exclamation mark every single time. And I will do this if you get on law review and we do one-on-ones next semester. This is the first thing that I do when creating your search. I will always add an exclamation mark. It's just a really, really good practice and habit to get into. Okay? Any other questions about this before we hit search? Yes? Yeah, because, so think about it would substitute the S for the end. for the N, excuse me.
Would it have
It's
to be-
religious. Oh, I would have taken out to the, oh, sorry, I would have taken out to the O. So, all right, if you forget, I know it seems obvious to go to tips, but actually you would go to advanced search. So everything that we just talked about is under advanced search. And these are what is called terms and connectors, these types of things that I'm using and how to use them, and they're all here. If you need a little bit more of a guided system of how to get started, these you can plug in your terms and we'll create these types of searches for you. But just know, typically to begin with, I don't do anything smaller than an and as a connector. I use as many exclamation marks as my search will allow, and I only do broadest terms to begin with. I don't get too specific in my facts yet. I'll add those in later on, but to begin with, I just want to be broad, okay? Okay, any other questions? Great. Okay, so where do we start our search? Secondary material. I'm going to pretend that we just went through secondary material and we're going to move on. Okay, so the other thing, why I would start with this terms as opposed to, because in your transcript, your motion, your statute, you were giving cites, right? So you were given which cites? Do you remember? The Cohen's case, right? And you're also given the statute, 20 U.S.C. 1681. I'm starting with this search, personally me, to get some good secondary material. I can get secondary material through Shepard's by Shepardizing my cases and my statutes, and it will pull out the secondary material that's cited to those specific things. But I want to look more generally in the beginning to look at this particular issue. I typically will start in secondary material to find my main cases, to find my main statutes. You've been given two. So we're going to just work on today Shepardizing those two. And we're going to skip some of this process, but this is the next step I would go in my research process, right? I would go in, I would find a secondary source. Typically, treatises are going to be very good. An ALR would be really good. I probably wouldn't start in law reviews unless this were a new hot current topic, but these two are the places I would go if I were going to go next in this particular journey. Any questions about this broadly? Okay. So I'm going to put in my statute of 20 U.S.C. 1681. Oh, and that is a Okay, here's my statute. What is the first thing I do when in order to do statutory research and interpretation, construction, all that good stuff? What's the first thing I do when I'm in a statute? Table of contents is good. That is one step. But what's the first thing I do? It's most obvious. Yes, read the statute. So I read the statute, right? I know, it seems a lot harder than it is. It really is just read it. So read the statute. So I get a good sense of what's going on in the statute, and now I want to apply the statute. There's two places I can find cases, and that's my next step after I read it. I want to apply the statute by looking at cases. The first place I can find cases is in what? Annotations, yes. Annotations, if you look here under the go-to function right there, I click go-to, and it's under case notes, okay? And here is my list of annotations. Remember, this is just like a legal index of all of the main issues that are addressed under the statute by the cases. So then I would go through and find my applicable annotations. Typically, I want to read generally how is the statute applied, the purpose of the statute, maybe the applicability, and then scroll through and see if I can find my particular issues here. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because now we're focusing now for the rest of the class on just Shepard's. Okay, Shepard's is going to be your friend in this particular bullet brief problem. So, annotations is the first place I can find cases. Now remember, annotations too is just a small snapshot of all the cases that are addressing this particular statute. If I want everything, I go to Shepardize. So Shepardize is a citator right over here on the right-hand side. I'm going to click Shepardize this document. And now we have 3,600 cases under citing decisions that have all cited this particular statute, right? That's a heck of a lot. Now, I want to find cases that are just relevant for my issue, and this is where Shepard's becomes very helpful. So what's the first thing that I should narrow to? Anytime I'm looking, jurisdiction, which is Third Circuit, 371. It's already feeling better. All right. Now what do I want to do? Do you have a timeline restriction, a date restriction? Nope. Okay. That would have been helpful, but that's good. All right, so now this is another reason why I started that at first initial search. Now what I want to do you remember that first initial search we created? What was it? Title IX. I put in my first initial search that I created within my Shepard's report because that's really what I want to find out is which cases are actually dealing with my main issue. So I start broad and still, again, start to filter a little bit more specific. So Title IX and substantially, substan to the exclamation. Oh, this is weird. Is it doing it for anyone else or is it just my browser? The new Apple update? Really? Okay, I'm totally changing it. That is annoying. Substand, is that right? Substantial proportion. What was the last one? Oh, athlete. Okay. So now we're down to 4. So 4 cases under the statute that are just addressing these 3 things. Now, this might be a little bit too specific to begin with, right? We probably need to take a step back. But we have these 4 cases that are dealing with Title IX and this, and this, and this, okay? So 4 is a little limited. I'm going to guess that you need to take a little bit broader step back, but this is how you do that, right? I choose my jurisdiction, and then I would go through my annotations previously, find which ones are on point, but here's where I'm going to go in and start to plug in my specific terms. The next thing I'm going to show you is very helpful within Shepard's is an actual Boolean connector. So we want to find cases that talk a lot about what? What's a term, or what's the main issue you're trying to get to here? What do you think? Do you know yet? Okay, well, let's say we want to find cases.
Yes, you do, guys. Substantial proportionality was the other issue. History and continuing practice.
Ooh, that's a lot of words. Okay, so how can we narrow that or make it smaller? Compliance? Do you like that word? Someone says no behind you, so I'm going to say, I know, right? It is. It's so much pressure. History. Let's start there. So what I'm doing by creating this type of search, at least 3, I am telling Lexis I want this term or terms to be mentioned a number of 3 times. I can do it 5 times. I can do it 6 times, right? I can do it up to 188 times, which means that Lexis, that word is being used a lot. So 3 is a good word because sometimes you'll do your searches and your filters, and 4 was actually a really lucky number. We narrowed it pretty quickly. But if I want cases that really talk about a specific term and really go into in-depth about them, this is a really good narrowing filter or feature. So let's do substantially proportional. We'll just stick with that one if I can not have the autocorrect. Great question. Yes, you do. Do I have to put it in quotes? Yes. Or parentheses? Yes, because it's a command. Ooh, there's only one case. Mentions it 3 times, substantially proportionate. So, yes. Oh, I should have filtered that. Just circuit? Okay, so if I just want circuit, this is what I need to do. I need to choose select multiple. Then I just select all here, okay? And then click OK. So I'm taking out state. Which didn't really take out that many. Yep. So I went to more at the very bottom, and then I clicked select multiple, and then I clicked all on federal. Oh, we don't need district.
That was a limitation on the research, but that's not here.
Okay, so then we would take out all of these districts. DC? IRS, I'm going to say probably not. This one I'm going to assume no. Other federal decisions, yeah, okay, we'll leave it. All right, now let's try it. So the other thing I just did wrong is I put it right after. Make sure that there's a space in between the at least 3 and the parentheses, okay? So that means 34 cases are in the circuit court that actually talk about substantially proportionate more than 3 times or 3 times or more. This is a really good way to quickly get into cases that actually go into discussion about your terms, all right? This at least 3, or at least any number, more than 1, function, okay? Any questions about that? Yes?
I was just going to suggest that something I did that was easier is I just clicked on the sidebar where it says federal courts. Instead of clicking select multiple, I just clicked federal courts and I got
Good job. You're right, you can't do that. Just click here.
yeah.
You're right. Okay. Okay. So after this, Shepherds, as far as this goes, this is what I would do as far as finding cases that have shepherdized this or have cited the particular statute that have gone in, and I would use my specific terms if I don't find them in the annotations, etc. Now, let's say that you get into the Title IX and you find a particular subsection that's really relevant to your discussion, right? So here's where Lexis will, under the Shepherds report, will pull out, oh, this is doing lots of things. This is a really large statute. It will go by specific subsection, and this is so big. Let's go out here. Here we are. So let's say you wanted cases that were just citing to this specific subsection. I then could, let me go back so you can see that again. It's at the very top of the report. Huh? No, I'm in the, here. So subsection reports by specific court citation breaks it down by all of the subsections. So then you're just looking at the cases that deal with subsection A or subsection C. If you want to find cases that way, right now, if what we did previously was shepherdize all of the cases that are dealing with every single part of the statute. But if I want to be even more specific, this is how I would do that. I would do that this process, go and find my subsection, and then do the exact same thing that we did. Find our jurisdiction, put in my terms, etc. Okay. All right. As far as finding cases, this is the best way to do that. Remember how I said you can find other materials through here? Because this is a citing source, I can go to other citing sources and I can find secondary sources. So I can find other other law reviews, other secondary sources that talk about this particular statute. Regulations, this is how you would find other related regulations. There's a lot to it. A lot of these here, I would probably go through and do the same type of searching that I did before, but I believe in your record you had regulations, so I would start there. If not, then I would do the same terms that I did before, right? I would do the at least 3 function and see, is there anything that's talking about substantially proportionate? This is how I would go out and find the regulations that are related to this statute, is by going through the Shepherd's report. Okay? This is the best use of your time as far as finding related things to your statute. Using the Shepherd's report will be very, very useful for you. Any questions about this before I go into how to do a case? Yes? Great question. Yes. Okay, so which part do you want to save? Because you can save any of it. We can save our search. We can save our results that we found in our results. Yep. I believe it's under actions. Let me see. Nope. The better search way to do that would be under history. So if you want to go back and rerun your, you can go both your search and you can find any documents that you've looked at specifically here. But this will save all of your searches. So here's the search that we did previously. I would just go back, and this stays for 90 days. But if I want to save my results, go to citing decisions. I would click on, let's say, here's that Cohen case that we're going to go to next. Click on that. I'm going to click on my folder here. I'm going to choose a folder if you haven't already created a folder. And then I'm going to create a new folder up at top there. And all right. And then save it to Rocklin. Does everyone know also that you have free printing? I'm always surprised. There's always a couple that don't know about free printing. So before we move on, though, I want to point out one thing that's very important if you're going to print this statute. Let's go back to the statute. And I'm going to click on print. And then I want to make sure that I click right here under content-specific options. I am going to deselect include annotations because your statute print with annotations is going to be several pages long. Like, depending on how many annotations you have, I've seen them for federal statutes print out about 200 to 300 pages. So deselect annotations, you don't need them, and then you can click print. The other thing I want to make sure you're aware of, making sure you choose LexisNexis printer, because we are automatically sending it to whatever attached printer you have. So make sure you're choosing the LexisNexis printer so that all of your printing goes for free upstairs to the Lexis printer, okay? But with statutes specifically, deselect include annotations. Okay. Any questions about shepherdizing the statute, working with the statute before I move on? Okay, then now we're going to go to the Cohen case. It is 99-1 F2 D 888. All right, so I'm in the Cohen case. First thing, I'm just going to point out a couple of things that are, again, different from Westlaw versus Lexis. Case summary is pretty much the same. They're both written by both companies. They're both written by attorneys. Now we get to another difference between Lexis versus Westlaw. So, head notes, very different system than key numbers, or your key something. Topic key numbers, they're very different. Here's the major difference between them. This is not a summary. All right, Lexis has gone through and we've pulled out all of the main actual rules of law coming from this particular case. So this is verbatim language. These are all rules coming from the particular case. So how I can use them to my advantage is if my issue is not popping up in these rules, because they are verbatim, then likely that my topic is talked about in depth in this particular case is pretty limited. So we already see here, this is our main issue, Title IX athletics. How do I then get to where this specific rule is coming from within the case? Yes, please. Okay. How do I find where this specific rule under Head Note 1 is coming from within the case? Okay. See, it was that easy. So Head Note 1, see, and that's where it's coming from, right there. That language is directly from the case. So all of the head notes on Lexis are verbatim rules taken from the case, and they're just compiled at the very top. It's a very easy system. If I then want to find more cases that all say this particular rule, this is where Shepard's comes into play. So I want to find cases that have all cited the Cohen case for this rule. How would I do that? Yep, I Shepardize that rule. And there are 25 cases that have all cited Cohen case for this rule. So now I have on-point cases all dealing with my specific rule from Cohen. Same rules applied that I did previously. What do I want to do first? Narrow jurisdiction, right? And then we'll go to Third Circuit. There's one. But I'm in Head Note 1. So then where do I go from here to find where this particular case talks about Head Note 1 from the Cohen case? To find directly to where that discussion occurs. Right over here, right? So we just link forward. So I'm going to click on Head Note 1. And here's exactly where that rule in Cohen and where my newer case in Fabia is talking about that specific rule. All right, I just link forward. It's a very easy way to find the most recent application of your rules. Do you need me to do it again? Okay, let's do it again. Okay, so let's go to Head Note number 2, title and defenses. And I'm not saying that this is on point or this isn't on point. I'm just showing you the process. So this is an actual rule. I know it's a rule because I click on Head Note 2, right? Takes me directly to where this exact verbatim language occurs. So now I want to find all of the cases that have analyzed Cohen for this particular rule. I want to then narrow Shepardize by this head note, right underneath that, 30 cases. Here's my list of cases that have all talked about the defenses in particular. What do I do? Again, jurisdiction, Third Circuit, it's just that one case. Fabia case again, Head Note 2, but this is going to take me to where its application of the second rule occurred, right? So I want to pay attention to which head notes I'm looking at because I want to focus on where that discussion occurred for which rules, right? So really pay attention to the head note because that will take you directly to where it is. So then here's where the second head note from Cohen, that second rule that was in there, this is where the Fabio case now talks about that particular rule. Does that make sense? Very easy to follow that progression. Any questions about that? Or do you want me to show it again? You're good? Okay, good. We're going to go back. Okay, so this is one way, when I'm in cases, that's one thing that's really different between the two systems is knowing how to utilize these head notes. And this is the best way to utilize this head note is really focus on the language, find the rule that's on point, then Shepardize by this head note, and it pulls back the exact cases, all that are on point within that universe. You then will then choose your jurisdiction for the most relevant case and then go from there, all right? Okay, now we're going to go in and Shepardize this entire case. So I want to go through and Shepardize this document. And what do we have? We're going to go down to the very bottom and I'm going to quickly explain Shepard's. So start with the easiest. The A and the I are blue. They're just saying that citing reference have come in, and you probably understand this a little bit from just understanding citators, but this just means that cases have cited it, right? They haven't done any sort of legal analysis or application of the rules within it. They're just throwing out there, they're not doing anything with it. We don't have to worry about upholding it or really doing any sort of real analysis of whether or not it's still good law. Green is the best thing you can ever see because they've actually done some analysis and they're all saying you're good to go. Yellow on Lexis has two different things. So yellow is cautionary analysis, and we break it down by doing cases that have distinguished your analysis and then also giving you criticized and different analysis here. These cases are going to be the most common type of cases that you'll see, and we'll go through how to analyze those. And then finally, red stop sign. What does that mean? Something within that case is no longer good law. Can I cite a red stop sign case? Maybe. This has the yellow triangle, right? So what do I need to do first? Figure out what cases have analyzed it. I have both two different types of critique. We've criticized it. Usually the criticized cases are saying we don't like it, but we're not going to overturn it. Distinguished by cases are just saying, here's the facts here, here's our more current recent facts, and we are not going to apply it because of whatever. They're distinguishing the way the application is done. These cases are your most helpful cases in really going through the law, right? They're really saying, here's what's going on, here's how we're going to change it, here's how we're distinguishing our application from Cohen, and here's how we're going to do it differently. These cases are the best cases you can find for your jurisdiction because they really go into the analysis. Criticizes don't do as much. All right, and then followed by just uphold it if you want to find more to build a nice list of cases, cited, etc. So I'm going to go to my distinguished cases here, even though it's not for my jurisdiction, and then to find where that happens, I click on the pinpoint page 1004. And then I have to read through where that occurs, right? And here's where that application occurs of Cohen. Very easy to do. Any questions about how to do this process? So, one thing I want to point out, make sure you select the pinpoint page. Sometimes there'll be multiple pinpoint pages as opposed to selecting the hyperlink text as before underneath. This is just going to be a better way to do it, is go through the pinpoint page and then find where that occurs. All right. Remember to choose your jurisdiction whenever you're looking at any sort of filtering. Remember to save things. We have like 3 more minutes. So can I keep your attention for 3 more minutes? I just want to show you 2 more things and then we're done. Okay. So Shepard's is great because remember Shepard's is pulling everything in and giving you a nice list. The problem with Shepard's is I'm trying to find more cases through Shepard's and I haven't been able to find anything relevant really through my headnotes, is that I can't figure out where the rest of the cases in my Shepard's report have cited to within this opinion, from either the Shepard's report or from the headnotes. So here's the trick about that. If I scroll over here on the to the right-hand side under About This Document, I'm going to click on Activate Passages in the Legal Issue Trail. When I activate passages, this pulls out all of the language in my case that other courts have cited to. So pretty much what it's doing, it's pulling my Shepard's report into my text so that I can then just focus on the language that I want to find cases have cited to, as opposed to going through my Shepard's report to figure out where did they actually talk about my case, the Cohen case, and which part. So if I go here and find, okay, here's exactly on point for my issue, but it's not a head note. Notice there's no H in here, so it's not an actual rule, but it's talking about my issue. I want to find cases that cited to this particular language. I click on that box, and then it pulls up all of the cases that did that. All right? I'm going to show you that again because this is I like this way of finding more cases because I'm then in control of which parts of my case they've cited to. So I'm under About This Document on the left-hand side here, or excuse me, right-hand side. I click Activate Passages. Activate Passages pulls out all of the places within my opinion that the courts have cited to in my Shepard's report. So it's pretty much pulling the Shepard's report into my opinion. I can then click on the passage. Oh, there wasn't anything for that. Click on the box, it then pulls back all of the cases that have cited to this particular source right here. Shepard's is a really great tool. Once you learn how to use it, it can really help you be more efficient in your research and finding more things on point. You just have to know a couple of little tricks in order to make it use it even more efficiently. So that, I believe, is everything on my list. Any questions that I can answer for you? Good. So I'm here every single week. If you have questions, I'm more than happy to meet with you outside of this particular class. My time is your time, so let me know if you need anything. Otherwise, have a great weekend, right? Study hard.